everybody, and welcome back to Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse the Lost Planeswalker, and today I'm going to talk about Vaihon Goldwaker. I believe I said that right. But Vaihon here is a new co-commander from the Olivia Opulent Outlaw Commander deck, and I thought he was a very cool commander. I actually thought all of the creatures were really cool. So I'm going to be doing one commander deck for each of the co-commanders this week, so keep an eye out for that. But I wanted to start with Vaihon Goldwaker because I thought he was very cool. So let's read what he does. Red, white, black, legendary creature, dwarf, warlock. Other outlaws you control have vigilance and haste. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have treasures you control become 3/3 construct, assassin, artifact creatures in addition to their other types until end of turn. Well, Vaihon here is pretty good. He turns all of those treasures into power, and there is a lot of ways to create a lot of power in Magic. In addition, he gives those things haste, which is awesome because you can make treasures and attack with them the same turn, which is a very cool strategy and what makes him so deadly. So let's talk about what this deck is going to revolve around. Obviously, it's going to be revolving around making a ton of treasures, which I think is something that kind of lacked from that Olivia Opulent Outlaw deck. Olivia makes some treasures, but not enough to be a big enough threat. Next up, we're going to have token effects that either have effects when our tokens enter or leave or get sacked, and also the same true for the creatures. We are in perfect colors for aristocrats, so there's a lot of aristocrat type effects as well. Because Vaihon gives those attacking creatures vigilance, that means we can attack with them, and then if they're blocked, we can just sacrifice them to deal extra damage, or maybe kill somebody's something, who knows. And of course, we have good stuff there at the end, kind of rounding out some of the deck. So let's start right out by looking at some cards that are going to create a ton of treasures that'll give us a lot of bodies on the board. So first off, we have Blood Money, Descent into Avernus, and Hit the Mother Lode. So Blood Money here is a card I usually don't play, but I thought it worked particularly good in this deck, and I'll explain why. So for 5 black sorcery, destroy all creatures. For each non-token creature destroyed this way, you create a tapped treasure token. The reason I thought this was so great was because before you go to combat, all of your treasure tokens are not creatures. In addition, like I mentioned earlier, Vaihon, whatever, gives all of those creatures haste. So you can destroy the entire boards, make a ton of tapped treasures. Now you're going to get to attack with them this turn, but all the treasures you had left up that you didn't use can just swing right in. And there's a couple other board wipes in the deck that do the same thing. You want to destroy all creatures, or whatever, or exile all creatures, who cares? Because guess what? Your treasure tokens aren't creatures until you go to combat. So I think this is a very cool strategy. In addition, Descent into Avernus is 2 and a red enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to them, where X is the number of Descent counters on it. This just converts straight power. I mean, first turn we make 6, then we make 12 power, and it just keeps going up and up and up. And while this is dealing damage to us, we're going to be able to deal a whole lot more damage to our opponents. And then Hit the Mother Lode is 4 red sorcery, discover 10. If the discovered card's mana value is less than 10, create a number of tapped treasure tokens equal to the difference. This is just going to create us a ton of mana. We get to discover, we get to put it in our hand or cast it for free, whatever. But whatever the difference is, we get to make that many treasures. So the next category I want to talk about is treasures for nothing. And what I mean by that is just by playing the game, you're going to be creating treasures, which I think is a very cool effect. So we have Monologue Tax, Revel in Riches, and Smothering Tithe. Now there is a couple ways that our opponents can prevent us from getting treasures in this manner, but it's going to hinder their game. So starting out, Monologue Tax, 2 and a white enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, you create a treasure token. Later in the game, they're going to have to cast more than one spell, so you're going to be creating power every time. Revel in Riches is 4 black enchantment. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, create a colorless treasure artifact with tap, sack, blah 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 blah. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 10 or more treasures, you win the game. Now, I didn't put that in here because of that. Obviously this is an alternate win con in this deck, but if you want to go ahead and win the game that way, go ahead. In Smothering Tithe, 3 white enchantment. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2. If that player doesn't, you create a treasure token. So Smothering Tithe here is probably the best, obviously, out of the bunch, and it's going to give you a lot of treasures. So let me run through the rest of those cards that make us some treasures, because I don't want to talk about all those. I think there's more interesting effects with what you do with those tokens that I want to talk about next. But we have Academy Manufacturer, Ancient Copper Dragon, Big Score, Brass's Bounty, Collector's Vault, Deadly Dispute, Dahada Binder of Wills, Fake Your Own Death, Goldspan Dragon, Great Train Heist, Grim Hireling, Hell to Pay, Lortho Corrupt Sheriff, Magda Brazen Outlaw, Mahadi Emporium Master, Mari the Killing Quill, Minds of Maria, Olivia Opulent Outlaw, Pitiless Plunderer, Professional Facebreaker, Prosperous Partnership, Seize the Spotlight, Sticky Fingers, Stormkill Artist, The Reaver Cleaver, Treasure Dredge, Treasure Vault, Unexpected Windfall, and Zorn. So now I want to look at some token effects for the tokens entering, tokens being sacked, just some great power-ups in general. But before I get there, I want to say if you aren't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. It would mean the world to me, and it would help me out a ton. So now let's look at the first set of cards here that are artifacts that deal damage. So we want to be dealing some damage with our artifacts, and here are some great cards to help us do so. We have Disciple of the Vault, Marionette Master, and Reckless Fireweaver. Disciple of the Vault is a single black creature, human cleric. Whenever an artifact is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may have target opponent lose 1 life. Pretty great effect here. Marionette Master, 4 black creature, human artificer with Fabricate 3. When this creature enters battlefield, you may put 3 counters on it, or create 3 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. Pretty good. Yeah, just 10 treasure tokens and you can just kill somebody outright. So yeah, definitely worth the 6 mana investment. And then Reckless Fireweaver, 1 in a red creature, human artificer. Whenever an artifact enters battlefield under control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. We're going to be making a lot of treasures, so this seems very good. Next up, we're going to look at some ways in which we can sack our artifacts to gain some additional value other than the mana we're going to generate. So we have Crime Novelist, Mayhem Devil, and Mirkwood Bats. Crime Novelist, 2 in a red creature, Goblin Bard. Whenever you sack an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Crime Novelist and add a red mana. One of my favorite new cards from the Murder at Karlov Manor set. Just get additional value for sacking your artifacts, especially treasures. Get 2 mana basically for every treasure, and you put a +1/+1 on this guy. It's perfect. I don't know what else to say. This is exactly what you want to do. Mayhem Devil, 1 black-red creature devil with whenever a player sacks a permanent, it deals 1 damage to any target. Again, this is great. We get to put damage right onto anything. Maybe it's a pesky creature, maybe it's a pesky opponent. Either way, we can end up killing it. And then Mirkwood Bats, 3 in a black creature, bat with flying. Whenever you create or sacrifice a token, each opponent loses 1 life. Double trouble here. You get to deal damage when they enter, you get to deal damage when they exit. You're going to be able to do a lot of damage here, and Mirkwood Bats is definitely a threat your opponent's going to have to remove off your board. Now I want to look at some cards that buff up your treasure tokens while they're creatures. We have some great ways to give those creatures some additional benefits. So first off, we have Illustrious Wonderglyph, Tempered Steel, and Teysa Karlov. Illustrious Wonderglyph is 4 and a white artifact creature golem with Ascend. So if you control 10 or more permanents, you get the City's Blessing, which means you've ascended. Other artifact creatures you control get +2/+2 as long as you have the City's Blessing. At the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 colorless gnome artifact creature token. Well, getting the City's Blessing is going to be pretty easy if you haven't by the time that you cast this, but getting to buff all of our creatures is a really powerful effect. So that's why Tempered Steel is the same thing. 1 white enchantment, artifact creatures you control get +2/+2. Pretty great if you ask me. And lastly here, we have Teysa Karlov, 2 white-black legendary creature human advisor with if a creature dying causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, it triggers an additional time, which is very good because some of the cards we have left in this category are very good for that. And creature tokens have Vigilance and Lifelink. We already had the Vigilance, but the Lifelink is going to be very handy. So now let's look at some of those other cards in this category. So we have Bastion of Remembrance, Blood Artist, Cruel Celebrant, Elas Ilkor, Sadistic Pilgrim, Kambal, Profiteering Mare, Lich Knight's Conquest, and Zulaport Cutthroat. A lot of cards there that says when a creature dies, we deal damage. So now you see some of the other effects we have in that category. But lastly, the good stuff as always. And I want to very quickly cover just 3 cards in this category because it's quite small. We have Cyberman Patrol, Hellkite Tyrant, and Insatiable Avarice. Cyberman Patrol is a new card from the Doctor Who decks, and it's 2 generic artifact creatures Cyberman, with artifact creatures you control have Afflict 3, which is huge. So whenever a creature with Afflict 3 becomes blocked, defending player loses 3 life. The reason this is so big in this deck especially is because it's when they become blocked not when they are destroyed. So guess what? You have a creature, it's going to get blocked, sack it because it's a treasure, and you still get to deal 3 damage, which is massive. It's so powerful. I love Cyberman Patrol, and you can see just how good it is. Hellkite Tyrant is 4 red creature dragon with flying and trample. Whenever Hellkite Tyrant deals combat damage to a player, gain control of all artifacts that player controls. Then at the beginning of your upkeep, if you have 20 or more artifacts, you win the game. Again, this might be another alternate win con in this deck. It's not necessarily why I put it in there, but it's pretty good. So Hellkite Tyrant is definitely worthwhile. And lastly, our new card, Insatiable Avarice, is a single black spree card, meaning you can pay additional to activate additional abilities. So for +2, so black in 2, search your library for a card, then shuffle and put that card on top. Very interesting. Then if you just want to do the second one, it'd be 3 black mana pips. Target player draws 3, then loses 3, which is actually very good. But if you want to do it all together, you're going to end up paying 5 mana in total to search your library for a card, put it on top, then draw 3 cards and lose 3 life. I love this effect. I think that this is a very cool and fair tutor. Paying 5 mana to do it is pretty great. You know, you don't get it either, so there's a lot of ways your opponents can mess with it. I think it's actually pretty fair, and I don't think it's going to be worth as much as it is now, which is like $5. I don't think it's worth that much, but I think it's still very cool. So let's look at the rest of those good stuff cards real quick. With Arcane Signet, Boros Charm, Chaos Warp, Dam, Generous Gift, Jessica's Will, Path to Exile, Skull Clamp, Soul Ring, Swords Plowshares, and Toxic Deluge. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, but what did you think of my deck? Vaihon Goldwaker is a pretty interesting commander, and I don't think he was given proper treatment in the deck he was put in, so I hope this helps you figure out what he actually does and how powerful he can really be. Let me know down in the comments down below what cards you would also like to include in this deck. I would love to see that. In addition, I have the deck list down below. I had some extra cards that I didn't end up putting in, but you might want to. If you would also consider leaving a like, subscribing, and sharing this video with a friend, that would mean the world to me. So thank you. So today's Scryfall card of the day is Joyous Respite. I have been gifted by the Kami with long life. So far, they have not seemed fit to withdraw their gift. There may yet be a way to stop the killing without more blood, human or Kami, being spilled. Dosan of the Falling Leaf. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.